Hi, everybody. Good morning for those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon for those of us on the East side. My name's Marisa. I'm here from Pretty Little Yarns. And as I was mentioning last night, for those of you who were at the PJ party, I've done the Fibre Love Affair a few times now. So I feel like a lot of you are friends. And so I thought that today I would make things a little bit more casual and tell you about my products, but through some of the projects that I've just finished and some of the project that I'm going to get started. And then I will, if we have time, take you through a little quick demonstration of some felting. So if at any point you have any questions, I'm going to keep the chat open on my end as well in case anybody has any questions to ask me. And I will do my best to monitor it. But yeah, let's get started. So the first thing that I wanted to show you, I don't think that I have shown at Fibre Love Affair before, but this is was the culminating project of my last year. I'm going to switch video scenes so that I can show you it more up close. So I'll put it over here. So this is the Fossil Frenzy Tea Junior, and it is all stranded color work. I think you're seeing that upside down. It is dinosaurs, and it is in my tiara sock. I made it for my 11-year-old son. And the colorways that we used were his choice. So he actually went through, why is this not? I think that my camera is doing something where it's trying to guess what I want it to focus on. And I wish it wouldn't do that. Anyhow, it was, I started it last year and I finished it towards the end of last year. And I was able to learn a whole new technique, new to me anyways, that is the ladder back jacquard. Let me see if I can focus on those ladder backs so you can see over there. It's just if you're not familiar with it, it's just a different technique for managing your floats. Because kind of strangely, this pattern doesn't actually discuss that, but it does have really long gaps between the color changes in some areas, like over here and over there. And so without doing something like the ladder back jacquard, you end up with all of these really long floats, which is, whoo, I have no idea what setting is on my camera and why it's doing these crazy things, but I apologize for that. Yeah, so I did this for my son. The blue colorway is called Ia, after the Greek city in Santorini. And the orange is called Orange Crush for the drink. And my son picked those colors out of some variegated colors that I had and said he wanted them together. So that is how that came to be. And in spite of it taking me about a year to finish, fortunately for me, my son still fits it. So happily, he has not outgrown it. So that is the first one. And again, that's my tiara sock. I loved knitting it. I loved learning the ladder back jacquard. It made me feel very clever. And it was super fun to learn. And I had recently, before I started this, taken a class to learn how to do two-handed stranded color work. So that also made me feel very clever. So altogether, I would recommend this pattern. But it is fingering weight. And yes, sorry, the color work is all the way around. So that's the back and that's the front. And it changes based on what size. So I think that it has the Fossil Frenzy Junior Tea goes from like a baby size all the way up to like a 12-year-old. And then there's the adult version of the pattern. But in the child's version of the pattern, The number of repeats of the pattern is determined by what size you're doing. So, but yeah, I would recommend it as long as you are happy to be doing fingering weight color work for an entire sweater's worth of garment, because that was a lot to do. The next thing that I finished was this little dress for my niece, and I have a funny story that goes along with this. So this is not hand dyed, but this is a product that I carry called Linacot. It's a linen cotton blend, and it is just a granny motif, crochet motif, sunflower dress. I believe the pattern is called the sunflower dress. I'm going to try again to do this so you can see it bigger. So there you go. So you can see all of those granny squares. And if I had been using my big brain when I was planning this, I would have done it differently. So the pattern sizing is determined by the number of squares you do. So here for this size, we had 6 squares altogether. But in hindsight, I should have done it differently. So if you decide to do a pattern like this, the way that this was sized was you could do a size 1 to 2-year-old or a size 3 to 4-year-old, but there was no 2 to 3-year-old, which is what I was hoping to do. And so I did the classic, they can grow into it. I'll just do the size up. But now I'm fairly sure my 1-year-old niece is going to wear this to prom because it's very enormous for a 1 to 2-year-old. So I think that if I were to do something like this again, and if ever you're faced with these kinds of design choices, I would have done the smaller size, but added additional rounds to my granny squares so that the individual squares would have come out a little bit bigger. And then that would have made it a lot easier to work with. But that is a gift it'll be for Easter for my little niece who is small. And I made just a wee little bucket hat to go with it. But it is a fun pattern. It's very adjustable. The back has a lace up. And so there's actually a lot of extra skirt. So it can, she can probably wear it until it fits more like a t-shirt. So that is that. The next thing I've been working on lately, I kind of lost my knitting mojo and my making mojo a little bit. I don't know, maybe Eureka, you had that lately because you've been having a hard time with your vertigo and things like that. But in the end of summer and fall of last year, we had a real rough time. My son had a seizure unexpectedly, and then we went on vacation where my mom was with us and she broke her femur. And then we came home and my son ended up in sick kids for 2 weeks. So it was a very stressful couple of months, and everyone is okay now. But for those 2 months, I was so overwhelmed with everything that I could not pick up any patterns, any projects, it just wasn't computing. So I've been making little patterns and little projects and focusing on some classes that I have coming up and making the samples for that. So I'm going to show you the start of my next class samples. So this is my coronet worsted. So it's the superwash worsted base that I carry. It's 100% superwash merino and it is worsted weight. And these look like they should be wrist warmers, but I think that would actually be very nice, but they're actually going to be coffee cozies, and they are for a steeking class that I'm taking, or that I'm teaching. So you can see here, these stripes that are going down the middle, that's going to be where I cut on the stripe, where I cut it to make it go around a coffee mug or a tea mug or whatever. So I have a couple of different versions because in this version, I'm going to be teaching the students to cut it all the way and then pick up along the edge to make a little fastening. Whereas on this bigger version, there is kind of a little area here, and we're only going to cut in the middle in order to make like a little keyhole that'll go over the coffee mug handle. So yeah, so I'm going to be teaching this class at the Fibre at Fern retreat in Aurelia. And these are both free patterns on Ravelry. I always like to use free patterns when I'm teaching a class because I find it's a little bit more accessible to people. So if you also want to try your hand at steeking, doing it on something like little is a little less heartbreaking if you're very nervous about cutting your hours and hours of knitting. And so the patterns are the sinensis, I'll type it into the chat, and the steeked mug hug. And then there's also a third one, which I'm about to start because I want people to see that there are different options. So I'm going to just type in the chat really quickly what the different patterns are in case anybody is interested. While I'm doing this, if anyone has any questions, please let me know. But these were all on Ravelry, so they're very easy to access if it's something you're interested in. Those are the three different patterns. So I have this coronet worsted available in both 50-gram mini skeins and in full-size skeins. So the 50-gram mini skeins are great for little projects like this, or for mittens, or like a little color work hat. I have already done those two cozies out of them, and I have plenty to do a third one. So I think that is all I have completed. And so I'm going to move on to telling you a little bit about what I have coming up, both for knitting and for new products coming into the store. So thank you, Patty. Yeah, I try to use free patterns every once in a while. Like what I'm teaching requires a particular pattern that doesn't exist in the free world. And so I end up having to do it a different way, but I just find it eases confusion for everybody. And then I feel like it's easy for if a student has a hard time downloading it, I can keep a couple of extra copies and ethically hand them out without worrying about like copyright infringement and having to buy multiple pattern copies. And it just makes things easier for everybody. But anyhow, going back to the next thing at hand, because I made my older son a sweater, I now also have to make my younger son a sweater. But my younger son has a vision of a sweater that does not yet exist. But even though it doesn't yet exist, it is something that should exist. It is one thing that I have been racking my brain for a while since I was knitting the other sweater, thinking I don't understand why this doesn't exist. So what he would like is a colorwork sweater where it is black or charcoal for the main color. And then he would like a band of flames coming up from the bottom and flames coming up from the cuffs so that it looks like he is on fire. Which is a very 8-year-old little boy thing to want, right? So he has this vision that he wants this, and it does not exist anywhere. Like I have scoured it. There is something sort of like it that's crochet. There is one very cool version, but it is fingering weight. It is in a foreign language, and it is a cardigan, like a steeked cardigan with skulls and crossbones off across the main area. It is a lot more work than I'm willing to put into somebody who is going to change sizes in a year. So, so the next goal is to design, I guess, a custom sweater for him. My plan is to use the Tin Can Knit Strange Brew as my base and then just use some, plug in some pattern for that. Ooh. This is my sport weight yarn. It is just like my coronet worsted. This is the Diadem Sport. And obviously this is undyed. And this is what I intend to make the sweater out of because I know my boys run hot, so I think that making it out of worsted would probably roast them. And while he does want to look like he's on fire, I don't think he wants to actually be on fire. So I also would probably be happy to make it in the sock weight yarn, but he is growing so quickly. He's almost outpacing his older brother, and I am concerned with how slowly I knit that he will grow faster than I can make it. So my plan is to dye this sport weight up into black, my toothless colorway, which is like a charcoaly black, as well as my Orange Crush colorway that you saw in there, my Limoncello colorway, which is a bright yellow, and then Red Jasper, which is like a red, like a tonal red. And so, and use those to play around with the stitch pattern. I have, I think the alternate book, which has lots of different stitch patterns in it. And so that will be great. Monica says someone is releasing a short row colorwork pattern that might work for flames. Ooh, okay, thank you. I'll look out for that DM. So yeah, so that is my next on the needles once I get all of my samples finished. That is what's happening next. I'll have to dye it up, get his approval because he is very particular. And then once he approves the skeins for use in the project, then we will go forward. The next thing that I want to make is I have a new couple of lines that I'm testing out in the next couple of months. I have to apologize. I don't have anything launching new this weekend for you to see. I'm in the process of dyeing things up for the upcoming show season where I just don't have, because I'm dyeing new to my shop products, I don't have them like photographed and they're not all done yet. So I don't like to post them up on the website until they are fully launched. So you can consider this like a sneak preview. But this new base that I have is has yak in it. That is the fun part. So I have a sock base that is merino, nylon, and yak. And it starts off this like gray color, which makes the colors change when you dye on them, obviously, because you're starting off, it's kind of like painting on a gray paper instead of on a white paper. And then to coordinate with it, I have a Surrey alpaca silk and yak that goes with it. It's super soft, it's very warm, and they're really pretty together, even without being dyed. So this is undyed, and I really love it. So I would like to make, I'm thinking of making like a rocket tee by Tanis Fiber Arts, which would be kind of like a casual knitted tee with stripes between the mohair-esque kind of look and the sock yarn. The reason I carried just regular Surrey alpaca silk as well, and the reason being is so many people were asking me for mohair because there were so many popular patterns like the rocket tee, the ranunculus, the love note. Those were so popular a couple of years back. And I would always have to tell them, no, I don't have mohair. And the primary reason I didn't have mohair was because I hate mohair so much. I can't, it looks like it should be soft and it's not soft to me. To me, it feels scratchy. That could just be me. But every time I see Miss Mohair, I go and I want to pet it. And then I'm sorely disappointed. The Surrey alpaca yarns behave like mohair, but they are actually soft. So this might just be me, and maybe everyone else finds mohair soft, but I'm always disappointed by it. So that is why I carry that. But to give you an idea of some of the colors that I'll have in those new bases, I'm sticking to some of the existing jewel tones in my collection. So in the alpaca, Surrey alpaca silken yak, I have these so far. So let me see if I can get this other camera going. There we go. So we have, this one is called Algonquin Sky. It's like a rich navy, and all of these colors have come out just a little bit richer than they normally would on my yak free version of it.
Okay. Oh, thank you, dear.
And then this is the, so this is alpaca, or sorry, Algonquin Sky. The teal is Rosso, named after a lake up in the Muskoka region of Ontario. And then this is aptly called Plum, not a very inspired name there, but that's it. And then this is it on the sock. So again, we have the Algonquin Sky and the Rosso, and you can see it's kind of just like a more muted, like moody version of these kinds of colors than you would normally expect. So yeah, I'm really having fun with seeing how the colors turn out on those. And then I've mentioned my little guys a couple of times now. And the next product, the new product that's coming out, will be sock blanks. So this one is undyed. But my children have expressed interest in earning some money. And March break is coming. And so, in an effort to support their interests in earning some money and entertain them through March break, they will be dyeing a series of sock blanks. They'll be hand painting them, and I will help them set them and all of that fun stuff. And then they will get a portion of the sales that come from selling their sock blanks. So that will be their product that's coming to the shop in the next couple of months. So those sock blanks are for them. Let me see. Penny's mohair is soft. I'm sure it is. But I have yet to meet a mohair that is as soft as the Surrey alpaca. So I will reserve judgment. Does anyone have any questions about that before I get going into the little demonstration I have planned? Nope. All right. So we're about halfway through, in case you're wondering how much longer you have to listen to me yak. I'm going to do that. Oh, that's what's happening. Okay, if you could bear with me just 1 second, I'm just going to try and fix this situation where it keeps zooming, because that's not going to work. Maybe it is a zoom setting. Aha, I have fixed it. Okay, there we go. So we're going to work over here, and hopefully you can see me clearly. So I'm going to do a little demonstration that is needle felting, but it is also a little bit of a preview of a class I'm about to teach. So I'm just getting all of my felting things out. So I've taught at Fibre at Fern a number of times now, and what I normally teach with felting is something 3D. And that is lots of fun, but people have been asking if there were other kind of versions of the felting class that we could do. So this is what I came up with. I'm the class that I'm teaching is called Felt Like Doodling. And we are going to be kind of talking about needle felting and doodling and the principles and elements of design, as well as um, just what benefits doodling can have. So we were talking yesterday in the PJ party about how sometimes it's easier to listen to things when your hands are occupied. And that is one of the benefits of doodling. And then the other benefits are that it can improve memory, and that it can lower stress. And the primary reason for that is, so when it comes to memory, the reason why doodling helps you remember is that it kind of uses, if you imagine your brain is like a computer and you have a certain amount of bandwidth that you're able to use, if the person who you're talking to or the content is not using enough of your bandwidth, then your brain will wander. So knitting or doodling or whatever those kinds of things are helps use more of your bandwidth so that you can focus instead of kind of like be stuck trying to pay attention, but really thinking about what you're making for dinner. So that is the whole premise of that side of things. And then similarly, the way that like meditation would work to make your brain relax is the same way that knitting or needle felting or doodling helps your brain to relax, because your brain goes into what I think they call like a flow state. It accesses, if I don't, do not quote me on this, but I think it's the delta waves. It accesses a particular type of brainwave that is the same as when you're driving home from somewhere and you kind of don't know how you got to that exit of the highway because your brain goes into that autopilot. That is the kind of state that our brains want to be in to kind of de-stress. And I am not a neurologist or a neuropsychologist or anything like that. So I'm just kind of reiterating what I've learned and read on my own. I also have a history of anxiety and have been repeatedly told by people to meditate, but I am fairly confident that I am broken when it comes to meditation. When I try to just sit there and focus on my breath and think nothing, I immediately think everything and then freak out. So it is much more effective for me to do something meditative that allows me to empty my brain and focus, like ribbing, for example, and focus like knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one works a lot better for me than for me to sit down and go, I'm going to just sit here and think about nothing. That doesn't work. So if you are like me and that doesn't work for you, then doodling and things might help. Let me just check the chat. There's some chatting. Do I have a scheduled shop update? I really wish I was that organized. I am hoping to get my shop updated in the beginning of March. I will post on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, I will post there when the shop is updated, and ahead of time I will post when to expect the shop updated. So that will be that. Love the idea of helping my sons earn money. Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to instill those kinds of values in them because, they would obviously love to just play video games all day, but that is not necessarily feasible. Focus, my boss used to test me when I was doodling and stopped after I kept answering his questions immediately. Oh yeah, that my husband used to do that when I was knitting. He would be like, are you even paying attention to me? And I would repeat back to him verbatim the last like 3 sentences. And he was like, okay, now he doesn't ask me questions at all like that. Oh, look at all these failed meditators. Okay, so this is for you. And you can do this with a pencil, obviously. You can do this with a pencil or a pen or markers or what have you. But today I'm going to do it with wool. So this is my big stash of colors. I have more, but I'm going to take out a few. The primary thing that you want to remember when you're doing this is not to worry about what it is you're making, not to worry about what it comes out like. It does not matter. For the purposes of my class, I have chosen to use this 8 by 8 inch felt mat that I'm hoping people are able to use as a trivet after, because I always find that if I am making something, even if it comes out awful, but it is useful, then that's fine, right? So if I make it, it'll still be a trivet even if it's ugly, and so that's fine. So that is what we're doing. I got these trivet shapes from Revolution Wool Co. They are a local to me, I believe. They're in Ontario, anyhow. Shepherds, and so they are very well cared for sheep who have made that felt, and that was important to me. So I'm just going to take out a few different colors here. I spoke a little bit, or I referenced a little bit last night that I, in my past life, was a interior designer. So I have a lot of knowledge that I bring to my practice as a fiber artist, in terms of elements and principles of design that helps inform my creations. And most times, these sorts of things are things that we all know instinctively in our brain. Like the way that you wouldn't kind of add cilantro to pasta sauce and expect it to taste right. You just instinctively know that those two flavors are from different profiles, is the same reason why you might do a doodle and find that it is balanced. It's kind of something inherent that we do in our eye. But when you know the different things that you are looking for, then it can be easier to ensure that. So while I'm not going to be caring too much about how this turns out, I am probably going to end up with something that follows some of the elements and principles of design in general. And so if you're not familiar with those, they are things like color and line. They're just things that you use when you're designing things. So color, line, balance in your composition. I'm just arranging my colors, by the way, in case you're wondering what I'm doing here. So for my doodle, I wanted to utilize color and probably line because I am a big fan of just making rainbows. So I think that that's kind of the direction I'm going to go in. So and there we go. So now you can see my big mess of fiber. So when you're looking at this sort of thing, I'm going to start with my felting needle. And if you are new and have not seen my demonstrations before, I should maybe talk a little bit about how this works and how felting works in general. So when you're felting, you're using these needles, which you probably won't be able to see, but they're barbed. I don't know if you can see that, but they're barbed along this point here. So there's little notches, and those barbs is what makes the needle catch the fiber and kind of get it to stick to each other. So, and the way that works is the individual hairs on the wool fibers have what's called a cuticle, and the cuticle is kind of like, it looks under a microscope, it looks like scales like dragon scales almost, or fish scales. And so the barb allows you to agitate those fish scales so that they kind of open up and attach to each other like you would expect, like Velcro. So I'm going to start, I want to use, and in my class, I'm going to encourage people to choose different elements and principles of design, but the one that I wanted to focus on was line, balance. So line is an element of design, and it's just what it sounds like. It is just the lines that you can create. Color, because I want to use this kind of gradient of things. Pattern, because I want to have it repeat, which is a principle of design, and rhythm, which is again is part of that repetition. So those are the things that I'm going to be focusing on. I'm giving kind of a very loosey-goosey part of that presentation, because if I start teaching you guys the principles and elements of design, this is going to be a very long presentation. So we're going to get started. So I'm going to work on this here, so you can see my different colors here in their sort of color order, and I'm going to move a little bit of ways and start felting it onto my mat. So when you're felting onto a flat surface, if you take your needle and felt all the way through, I'm trying not to do that. You don't need to felt all the way through, I guess is the point. If you do felt all the way through, what's going to happen is you're going to get tufts of the fiber come through the other side of the needle, or I mean of the mat, which I mean in some instances maybe that's something you want, but in this particular one I do not. So I'm going to try and make like little wavy lines, and again, like it's supposed to be doodling, so we're not going to stress about it. It's a presentation, so I might be allowed to have a little bit of stress. However, you guys are all friends, so it's fine. And if anybody has any questions while I'm doing this, please throw them in the chat, or even just unmute your microphone and yell them out, because I am just stabbing away. And this is an excellent time for me to answer questions about felting or about anything really, about whatever you'd like. So I'm just making these like little wavy lines. And so if part of doodling for meditation, so if you were to go on the deep dive rabbit hole that I have just been on about this, and maybe you have in the past, there is something called Zen doodling or Zen tangles. And those are, when you talk about Zen tangle, it is a like registered doodling technique whereby there are rules. You have to have it a certain size and you're following certain doodling patterns, which takes some of the creativity out of it. But for some people, that is what allows them to let go and just do their thing, because then they're not worried about like what they're doing and they're just doing it, you know, they're just kind of following a format. But for this purpose, we are obviously not doing Zen tangles. Those would be done with a pen or a pencil. Ha! It's not a felting session if you don't stab yourself. But yeah, the primary thing when it comes to meditative doodling or meditative anything is kind of the mindset you're coming to it. So in that sense, like for me at this particular moment, this is not a especially meditative version of this craft because I'm here presenting. But if you were to take this to a mindful level, the idea would be to come to it with that intention that you were doodling and you were just going to give yourself 15 minutes, not caring how it turned out, grabbing some fiber and starting to make patterns, kind of like you would when you were a teenager listening to English class, or maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but you know, just making doodles in your margins. And so when you do that, maybe you would put on some relaxing music that you enjoy. kind of give yourself some space away from the kids or the grandkids and husbands and partners and wives and whatever have you. Anybody who causes you stress, leave them somewhere else. And just come to this craft and give yourself the time to just do something for fun. I don't know about anybody else, but I am a recovering people pleaser who is a also recovering perfectionist. And so giving myself permission to make something ugly, and this won't turn out ugly because I know enough about what I'm about making things look pretty. It won't actually turn out ugly. But when I focus too hard on whether the thing is going to be ugly, then I end up losing the chance to be as carelessly creative as I can. So I'm just gonna go with it. So you can see I'm doing like some thicker line over here and thinner line over here. And if I was being persnickety, that would bother me. But because we're doing kind of a meditative doodle version of this, I'm not going to worry that they're different thicknesses. It's also a great way to, like, if you were planning a color work project for your knitting, you could play with those colors in this medium and say, okay, well, actually, these colors look really great together, or these other colors look better together. Um, when you're talking about doing color work, you're always going to be looking, well, not always, but if you want the stitches to stand out, you're going to be looking at combining colors with more contrast. So if you had thought to yourself, ooh, I want to do all reds, then when you see them together, you might decide, actually, I need to throw a yellow in there or a green, and then that will make it pop. I am glad you like this idea, Nancy. I was really thinking when I came up with what to talk about today that I didn't I'm always nervous that I'm going to bore everybody because I have done felting demonstrations before for you guys. And I have done PowerPoint presentations and those all felt very professional and that's great. But today I thought, why don't we make it just a little bit more informal and you can get a little bit more of a personal side to me and see what I like to work on and also have a look at this technique because it is helpful. So you can see what I was talking about on the back where the fiber is coming through. Can you see that? Those little bits of red. And like that's not the end of the world. I can either come back the other way and felt it back in, and then you will just still see those colors poke through. I don't think that that's a big deal personally. If it really bothered you, you could get a piece of cork and glue cork to the back of this, and it would just make it a very durable trivet. Um, or you could trim it off, like you could kind of shave the back of it. That would be fine. So yeah, when I ordered these little mats, I was so excited that I was able to get through to the folks at Revolution Wool Co. that I forgot to ask any questions. So I actually anticipated getting white mats and then was a little bit surprised when they arrived, but realized that it was my own fault for not asking any questions. And they're kind of growing on me because, and I remember this from school. My husband went to animation school and art school as well while I was doing design school. And I remember when he was working on art projects that he would use a gray paper to do like portraiture and things like that because it would make the colors pop differently. And I kind of feel like that's what's happening here. And I'm kind of digging it. I'm kind of happy about it. But it is like a really good quality piece of felt as well. It smells like sheep, which is how I test the quality of sheepy things. If it smells like sheep, then I feel like it is better. I don't know that that is a technical reason, but that is just how I feel about things. Well, yeah, so this is how I'm going to keep going with it and work on these lines. Looks like we've got about 5 minutes left, although I did get started a bit late, so I'm happy to stay late if anybody needs me to. But I'm going to continue to felt. If anybody has any questions, now's your time to throw them in. I'm happy to hear feedback as well. The other thing too that you might not know about felting is I think a lot of the times when I'm teaching felting, people get very bogged down about like they feel like it's very permanent. Um, it can be not permanent. See, I just deleted that. So you don't have to worry. It is possible to pull things out. Sometimes that ruins what like your the this piece. Sometimes that the piece that you've pulled out is too felted to be able to be reused, and that is fine because nobody died from giving up this little piece of wool, even though my brain would tell me otherwise. But it is actually okay to throw out the little bits of crafting supplies that you don't need because they no longer work. That is totally fine. Or you can use them to stuff stuffy, or there are other ways that you can repurpose them if it doesn't work for this. You can stick them in the middle of a 3D felted object to act as the core. So there are ways to reuse it even if it doesn't get reused in that same project. So you don't need to worry about those kinds of things. Ooh, as I'm going, I'm like having thoughts about which direction to put this in. And it suddenly occurred to me that wouldn't it be fun to like overlap it? So I think that's what I'm going to do. The bonus part of doodling with felt compared to doodling with a pen and paper is you have, when you're talking about meditative doodling or doodling for relaxation, is this has like the added cathartic benefit of stabbing something legally. Because sometimes in this particular world we live in, that really sounds appealing. So if you need that cathartic release of just aggressively stabbing something without hurting anybody, needle felting is for you. And I don't know if you caught that, but I've left some of the ends to be trimmed off later, but you can also fold them in. So if you can kind of twist it, just like if I know some of you guys are spinners, so just like you would with when you're twisting to put twist into your spun yarn, you can add a little twist to the fiber that you're felting, and then that just helps you to lay it out a little bit more accurately. And so then you can use that twisted fiber to kind of go back on itself. So I like to kind of twist it with my needle sometimes when I'm feeling fancy. And then I can kind of tack it back down in the other direction. And then that tidies up those edges. This is where we're at so far. And the other colors that I'm going to be adding, I'm going to go back into like a rusty orange, and then here to here. Here, I got one in the middle. And so that is my palette that I would like to continue with. And I'm just going to continue making these lines. So I think the next line I'm going to probably bring from this side so it overlaps, because I really love how this like overlap ended up. But this is kind of the whole point. You just kind of get to play. And I think in the world we don't play. What is it going to look like in the end? That's a great question. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna go back up here. Love this idea too. Yuriko is frozen and locked out of her control panel. Oh no, she'll log out after Marisa finishes and come back if we get kicked out. Please, everyone, come back. So good thing to know. And I probably should then not keep rambling forever. Roz, you haven't felt it in a while. Yeah, felting is so fun. And needle felting especially. I have to say I don't wet felt very often on purpose. but I find needle felting, I don't know, there's something about it that for me, it's something that's really creative and not stressful. I don't know. I don't put too much, I'm going to switch cameras. I don't put too much pressure on myself when I'm needle felting. I allow myself to kind of play, and that is fun. I hope that if you do decide to do some needle felting, that you'll share with me what you end up making, because it would be great to see everything. And yes, stabbing is a good part of it. What else is in the chat here? What is it going to look like at the end, Diana? So I don't know. That is the fun of doodling, is we don't know how it's going to end up. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'm thinking that those colors that I showed you are going to end up just doodling kind of back and forth and interlocking. And when I'm done, I will post a picture of it on my Instagram so that you can see how it turned out. And then that way, if you want my Instagram, I'll put it in the chat as well, but it is oh dear, it is at Pretty Little Yarns Ltd. The Ltd is because there is somebody in Australia with a dead account that has no Ltd, and I can't use it because they are using it. And then it'd be good to do while being on our Zoom meeting. Yeah, you could stab felt. That's a thing. Do you have any? I don't have any finished ones of the 2D stuff, because this is a new brainchild of mine. Sometimes I come up with classes all in my brain, and then I go, I know this will work, and now I have to make the sample. So I have not. This is the sample that I've been working on. We started right now because I thought that would be fun. But when it's done, I will definitely show you. And I actually am really enjoying it. So I imagine it's going to, maybe everybody's getting a felted trivet for Christmas this year, because I think that it's going to be something I do more of. So yeah. So thank you everybody for whiling away your hour with me and letting me ramble about things that I'm passionate about right now. And what can you use it for? Does the trivet mess up the felting? I mean, if you spill sauce on it, that will definitely mess it up. It depends how you're using it. And you don't have to use it as a trivet. You could use it as, it doesn't have to be useful at all. You could frame it in a shadow box and put it on the wall. It doesn't have to be something that you use in that utilitarian way. For me and the way my brain works, telling myself that it'll be useful anyways is something that allows me to let myself be more creative. But if you are somebody who would that would stress you out, then don't put sauce on top of it, because it definitely will ruin the felting. Using it as a trivet won't ruin the felting. Spilling things on it will, because that will obviously stain and things like that. So, um, but yeah, thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me again, Yuriko. It was always a pleasure to be here, and wishing you a great rest of the show, everybody.
Thank you so much, Marisa. That was so interesting. And I was taking some pictures of the screen along the way because I just happened to be in possession of a huge piece of that felting mat stuff.
Oh, perfect.
My daughter-in-law has a bag, and my son works at the Museum of Anthropology, and he brought some home for me to fix Amanda's
Yeah.
bag. And so I have this huge piece. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm excited too. I
And
think
you
this is
could
just a
you
great
could do
idea.
this and then sew it together into a box, or you could do it on like a table runner, so that you remove before you use the table, so that it's just decorative. You could put it along your mantelpiece. Like, there's so many ways you could use it. You could hang it on the wall. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you come up with, because you're always so creative. So that'll be great to watch.
I'll bring the bag back after the break. And just to
Yeah.
reiterate, Yuriko is frozen out at the moment, and so she'll be logging out and coming back into Zoom again. And
Okay.
if we all get lost along the way, then let's all try to get back in 10 minutes or so. So see you in a while.
Thanks, everybody. See you.
I just had a text from Eureka, and she said in the middle of this process, Windows decided to do a quick update she'll be back as soon as possible. And if you get, welcome to life, right? And that just to continue to knit or do what you're doing, and she'll be joining us soon.